One day last week, I gave Bob Zuchenia a ride from Torrington to Winsted in my truck. Along the way, Bob, who hosts the Channel 13 program Come Home to God, began to sing an old gospel song. As soon as he began, I mentioned that the tune sounded the same as the nursery song, Go Tell Aunt Rhody. This week I remembered the tune and use it today for the song, We Need the Revenue. I wrote the lyrics in the car on the way to Maine last weekend for Halloween. Most lyrics that I write about Winsted begin a bit morose and end on a positive upbeat, suggesting that more revenue is needed and more revenue is obtainable. Today's tune follows the fourth budget proposal defeat of the year and a new proposal for the fifth 2008-2009 budget.
Go tell the town folk, go tell the town folk, go tell the town folk, the fourth town budget's dead. The one we've been hoping, the one we've been hoping, the one we've been hoping would provide a comfy bed. The town manager's mourning, the town manager's mourning, the town manager's mourning, his fourth town budget's dead. The superintendents are weeping, the superintendents are weeping, the superintendents are weeping, their fourth town budget's dead. It died at referendum, it died at referendum, it died at referendum, it's what the voters said. Go tell the town folk, go tell the town folk, go tell the town folk, we're going to try again. We'll try for the fifth time, we'll try for the fifth time, we'll try for the fifth time, a budget's overdue. The year will be half over, the year will be half over, the year will be half over before a budget's passed. The town manager's hoping, the town manager's hoping, the town manager's hoping that the fifth proposal will pass. The superintendents are hoping, the superintendents are hoping, the superintendents are hoping that this town budget will pass. It will be a reduction, it will be a reduction, it will be a reduction, an attempt to get it passed. Go tell the voters, go tell the voters, go tell the voters, the increase may be less. The voters want the services, the voters want the services, the voters want the services, the selectmen are perplexed. We'll have much less service, we'll have much less service, we'll have much less service if the fifth proposal is passed. The town manager's mourning, the town manager's mourning, the town manager's mourning, the town will have no comfy bed. The superintendents are weeping, the superintendents are weeping. The superintendents are weeping. The schools will have no comfy bed. The next year will be tougher. The next year will be tougher. Next year will be tougher. We need more revenue. Go tell the voters. Go tell the voters. Go tell the voters that we need more revenue. 5 selectmen have promised. 5 selectmen have promised. 5 selectmen have promised that the revenue is number one. It's a manager goal and objective. A manager goal and objective. It's a manager goal and objective to construct a revenue plan. The EDC is chartered. The EDC is chartered. The EDC is chartered for town development. The town planner is chartered. The town planner is chartered. The town planner is chartered to help achieve success. With an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, we'll have our comfy bed. With an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, we'll have our comfy bed. With an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, we'll have our comfy bed.
This is Brian O'Haron. Today you will see a dollar sign for most of the program. It will be displayed a lot today because this program is about dollars. This program will concentrate on the bleak town short-term future, 2 to 5 years or so, budget future, and possibly bright future that may emerge if the town works hard as a team and the national economy improves. Winsted taxpayers may continue to have many difficult years if more additional revenue is not forthcoming in a timely manner. We have to work hard as a town and earn the revenue that we need. When distributing my green papers over 2 years ago, I pointed out that it was important to keep expenses under control during difficult tax years, while pursuing more additional revenue to help the town shoulder the load. I gave some examples garnered from present and past town leaders. This is even more important today when the town and its taxpayers are further strapped and facing uncertain and more difficult financial times. Since the need for additional profitable taxpayers has been the theme of this program, I will again discuss the town's most obvious problem and efforts that selectmen and town boards and commissions are making in an attempt to improve the revenue situation, albeit very slowly. I continue to leave the tax reduction efforts to others. We have the Taxpayers Association, the Independent Party, and all kinds of groups in town that, for one reason or another, are interested in lowering taxes. This program has tried to steer clear of that. I do report on the tax situation, as I will tonight, but I'm trying to focus on what I consider to be the most important thing, and that's getting the revenue in. That will help keep the taxes down. They're all important, of course. We need to fix up the town, and we need to keep the taxes under control while we're trying to get the revenue, and then we got to hurry up over time and get some revenue in. I feel that there has not been enough emphasis placed on obtaining additional profitable revenue to help pay our mounting expenses. So I will continue to emphasize the need for profitable revenue and what I think is necessary to achieve the same. Many will not agree with me. That is their prerogative. Now I will go over the agenda for tonight. First, comments have already been made. The fifth proposed budget, which was agreed last night at a special selectmen meeting that I attended. It was like pulling one toenail out every hour or so for 3 or 4 hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours. I can't even remember how long it was, but it was excruciating. I also went to the meeting on Monday where they went through the budget as well, the selectmen meeting, and I sat through that. That was also excruciating, but I did get through it, and I taped it on tape, went home and watched it a couple times, so I do have a pretty good idea what's happening there. And I'm going to talk about that. The fifth charter, 5 charter question result, we'll talk about that for just a few minutes. The town problem, which I'll reiterate. I've been talking about it now for a long, long time, and I keep reiterating it every quarter or so, especially in difficult times like we're in now, where we're heading for our fifth proposed budget town meeting on November 22nd, Saturday morning, 11 a.m. at the Gilbert School, if all works out according to plan. And then I'll talk quite a bit about the town's economic structure and what they're trying to do to help us with this revenue problem we have. The fifth 208-209 town budget meeting is 11 a.m. Saturday, November 22nd, 208, at the Gilbert School. The proposed tax increase, unless some refinement is done today by the finance director, was 0.58 mils, or 2.34% increase. And the last fourth referendum, it was a 3.87% increase. So they've come down from 3.87% to 2.34%. My own view is, when I was at the meeting last night viewing it, I didn't participate, I just viewed it, is that they used some techniques that I probably wouldn't have used to come up with this number. They're going to use more of the fund balance than perhaps they should, and there are some other things like that. But they're the selectmen. They've chosen to take this approach. We'll be going to the town budget meeting to try to, some people will try to lower this, maybe, or otherwise it'll get passed on to the town referendum. Will probably be in beginning of December sometime to vote on this fifth proposal. I just wanted to remind you quickly of what happened in the last ones. The first one was for 1.77 mil increase. Mil is $816,900 after the reval. That's what the mill is worth today, $816,900. So the second referendum was 1.33 mils, 5.41% possible increase. That was voted down. Number 3 was 0.71 mils, 2.88% increase. That was voted down. Number 4 was, referendum number 4 was 0.91 mils, 3.87% increase. Notice it went up here about 1% between these two. That was voted down recently. And the fifth proposed budget increase that was agreed last night after discussion on Monday night and last night with the Board of Education is 2.34%, or 0.58 mil increase. So that's pretty much it for the budget. There were no cuts last night or on Monday night for the education budget. Most of the cuts you see that came up, and they will involve some reduction in services, perhaps not as many as I implied in the song, because the song was written a little bit before the meeting. So there will be some services reduced. If you want to know what they are, you can call the town manager, and I'm sure he'll be happy to explain that to you. So off we go to the 5th referendum on November 22nd, 11 a.m. at the Gilbert School. Actually, if I said referendum, it's wrong. It's the town budget meeting, 5th town annual budget meeting for 2008-2009. Sorry about that. Now, as far as the charter questions, the results of the proposed charter questions you probably all know by now, but all 5 questions failed, and that's all we really need to say about that. My view is on this is that the selectmen, 5 selectmen, promised that they would bring this to the town for a vote. They did do that, and although the vote didn't come out the way they would have liked it, they brought it to the town. The town got its chance to vote on it. And my view is that there was a lot of education done along the way over the last year. I personally learned a lot from reading all the charters around the state and the and town manager type charters as well, and going to meetings and talking to leaders around the state. And it was very rewarding for me. People say, Brian, you wasted a year on this. I didn't waste a year. I now know a lot about these various forms of government, and I've passed a lot of the information on this program. You've seen some pretty professional people, mayor, a couple of the council people from Torrington, and we showed some efficient meetings being run over the last few weeks. So I think it was good. And the thing I want to say is question 1, which is, do we want a mayoral form of government, which I thought was the most important question, was 2,741 voted no. We don't want a mayoral form. We want to stay with the town manager form. And that's 61% of the total votes on that question. 1,827, much better than I perhaps thought would happen for this first time here, voted yes. So that was about 39%. So I think there was a good try. It was a good participation by everybody. I think everybody is better off for the exercise. But now it's behind us, and we need to get on and do the kind of things I talked about over my program in the last few weeks, that if this mayoral form failed, then we got to get to work and straighten out this town manager form of government that we have in this town. And we've got to stop micromanaging the town manager. We've got to try as voters, and I especially appeal to the unaffiliated voters, all 3,700 of them or so in town, to pay close attention to this, watch it on television, on the programs, and talk to people about it. But basically, we want to try to get this town manager to stay through changes every 2 years in the selectmen constitution there. So what we need to do is get the selectmen working properly with the town manager, get the town manager working properly with the selectmen, and then try, if the town manager proves to be as good as he has been so far and gets the same kind of grades as he has so far, that we keep the town manager through various changes in the form of government. So I think that's very important. I'm going to talk a bit about that tonight when I go through some of the things we need to do to get the revenue up. And remember, that's what I'm after, getting the revenue up. Other people can keep their eye on the taxes, but I want to focus on this particular thing. So now I'm going to repeat, once again, the town of Winchester problem from my viewpoint. And that is, over the past 10 years, prior to the 2007-2008 budget, the town of Winchester's net grand list has grown at an average of about 3.52%, or $16,026,447 per year. And that's baked into the budget already. So we expect that every year. And about 90%, it's not baked into the budget, it's baked into the grand list. So just in case I don't want to confuse you. About 90% of this 3.52% has come from additions to the tax payer, not 90%, 0.90%, a little less than 1%. About 25% of this 3.52% has come from additions to the taxpayer base, every year. Upgrades to homes and buildings, additions to homes and buildings, additional housing, new houses that are built, additional businesses coming to town and businesses upgrading their property and things like that. So that's mainly where most of our of that money comes from. The remainder, 25% from property revaluations, the town budget, the remainder of this, 75%, comes from property revaluations. Now these property revaluations increase the grand list, but the taxes are voted once we have budget each year and we know how much we need from for taxes. So that's a calculation done by the finance director. So I want to say that the important thing is to have enough in the grand list so that you can afford to tax the people the amount you need, and it's also important not to tax the people any more than you have to. So that's an important thing that a lot of people don't understand how it works, but you can find out from the town hall if you need to. The town budget itself has grown at an average of 3.94%, or $1,026,000 per year over the last 9 years. Property taxes have increased at an average of 3.93%. And I always want to stress this to you. Over the last 9 years, and that was the data that I had available when I did this, was prior to 2008-09 budget, was 3.93%. And that is not too bad. I mean, it could be 4.93%, it could be 5.93%, but we have not managed to get above that on an average over the last 9 years or below it. So that's an important number to remember tonight as we talk on this program. The town is my kind of view is it's going to be tough to get higher than 3.93%, and it's going to be tough on average over 10 years to get lower than that, right? But during these difficult times, we might go down, and then sooner or later we might have higher increases to bring it back up to the average again, right? But even now, at this referendum, we're looking at 2.36 or whatever I said earlier, so we're pretty close to the average even at this. We're at 2.36. Well, we're quite a bit less. Now, if we can keep that up every year, then the average will come down. If we can't, the average will either home in on 3.93 or it will go up a little bit. Inflation is high now, as you all know. And maybe all this economic problems we're having will drop the inflation rate, but it might increase it too. We don't know. The jury's out on all this worldwide, national economic problem that we have right now and that we have to live with. We also have, the town is also very dependent upon various apparently unpredictable state of Connecticut grants and aid, which are about 25% of our budget. Most of it goes, of course, to the schools. The schools are about 65% of our budget, maybe a little less, and the town is the remaining 35%, maybe a little more. So it's in that kind of an area. So 25% of the budget that we get from the state, that may or may not continue to flow. We did have one year, a few years back, where we lost $500,000 or $600,000 from the state, and that did affect our own economy here locally and our own budgets. That may or may not continue to flow in the future at the same advantageous rates as they have in the past. Now, I would say, from what I read in the papers, you know, we might be in for some surprises over the next few years with the amount of money that we get from the state. And it may be redirected. Some may go to in areas where it hasn't gone freed as slowly in the past, and some may stop flowing as freely to other areas that it has flowed to in the past. These statistics have not been enough, assuming responsible spending, to adequately maintain the town's infrastructure and improve certain service needs and desires of the town of Winchester. Although all the information here has been taken from town public information, these numbers are unofficial, and any mistakes are mine and mine alone. please bring any mistakes, if you see them, to my attention for correction. Now, I have not factored in the 208, 209 budget because we've been so busy over the last 6-7 months, but sooner or later I'll get around to that, but I don't expect it to change things very much. Now, what I want to talk about now is I want to get into more about the opportunities for revenue. And again, we have on November 10th, 2008, we have a public hearing at 7 p.m. on the Aurora Estates development off of the Enterprise Corridor down towards Torrington. They, at that meeting, will consider input from the public. Anybody can go, anybody. So if you are interested in what's happening on that project, you can go to that public hearing, and you can express your opinion. You can listen to everybody else express their opinion, and I always say try to do it in as professional manner as possible. At that meeting, once that meeting's done, they're going to take agree the draft settlement for the developers and present it to the Litchfield Superior Court. It's for a court case in Litchfield where the developer has sued us. I'm not sure whether he sued the town or he sued the Planning and Zoning Commission or what, but there's a suit there, and what the town's doing with the developer at the town's initiation is to agree a compromise with the developer of about 225 units and some other amenities for that development. This development is separate from the one called Highland Ridge Estates that also has a St. Anne's Country Club. That's 456 or so units with a golf course, 18-hole golf course. So that's what will happen. They'll be talking about this. They've come to almost an agreement here, and it'll be probably finalized and presented to the public at this public hearing. And then once it goes to the Litchfield Court, the judge up there, the Litchfield Court agrees or not to the proposed agreed settlement between the town of Winchester and the developer. And if the court is most likely to follow, if we agree with the developer, then they'll probably agree too, or they may make a few more suggestions that need to be incorporated, but that's that. And then once they're happy at Litchfield Court, then the permit is approved subject to agreed conditions. There will be a whole bunch of conditions on these approvals, as there are on all these permits, especially for big developments. And one of them will be that we have to see their final plans before they go ahead with implementation. There's plenty of conditions, too many to go over here on this program. But now I want to talk a bit about synergy, and this is very important to pay attention to this because synergy is critical for our getting revenue into Winsted. So the synergy here is, and I've put this one up once before a long time ago, a similar one, synergy. Now here's the Torrington line down here, down along the corridor, the old Route 8 corridor, and then there's Winsted on this side of the line. And this is where the Highland Ridge Estates will be. Actually, I think it's in this block, but Highland Ridge Estates and St. Anne's Country Club, 456 units with a big 18-hole golf course. That's been already received as permits in town. It now has to get the golf course permit and the DEP permits from the state. And then the Aurora Estates is 225 units. There will be some children in this area here. And they're down there by the Torrington line. Mountain Road comes down. Then you get onto the Route 8 corridor there. And in order for them to go ahead, they need to get this permit agreed. And that's what the public hearing's about on the 10th. And then they have to get water and sewer run down to these developments. And that the Water and Sewer Authority is working on a plan for that has to be agreed by our Planning and Zoning Commission and the state, as I understand it. And the developer has agreed to pay for that sewer line at least down to the town garage and perhaps up to Main Street in Winsted, because right now there is no sewer line that runs past the little development there where Billy Ray's is. That's, I think, where the sewer line stops now. So we have to get it to run all the way down there And most of that will be, if not all, will be paid for by the developer once we agree all this stuff. And also, the water line has to run down to these developments. And again, the developer will pay to run that water line down to the developments. And the important thing here, and where we get into synergy, is that once those lines are down there, they already run the water line down to the state building where you get your driver's licenses down there on the corridor. But the enterprise corridor is on both sides of this sewer and water line, on both sides of the road. And what happens then is it allows us to have people all along this corridor hook up to the sewer and water and build little industrial parks or any kind of industrial buildings, and on both sides here where practical. Now, I did mention in the last time I did this that this is not easy place, because it's hard to do septic tanks down there because there's a lot of ledge, and you got to be at least 4 feet above the ledge if you have a septic system. So that's one of the reasons, main reasons they need a sewer. Also, if you're going to build industrial buildings down here and have a lot of people in there working and things, then you need to have enough water pressure, not only for your normal water needs, but to run the sprinkling systems that are mandated. So the water line is very important. So the first thing that happens is, if it goes in this order, it could happen the other way around, but there's a lot of money involved in getting all this done. And if the town can have the developer pay for all that, then it becomes easier for the town to attract other people to fit their industry in this corridor. So, and the ones that are there now to expand the use of the corridor. So this is what we call synergy. And once all this starts to happen, then we also get the spending in the town and in the county and in the state that it takes to build all these places in the golf course. We get all the spending in the stores and in the gas stations and all that. So, and then all these people here start to be, there's other synergies involved too. Okay, so what I want to point out is that these will be age 55 and older, age restricted, so there won't be any children in the school system here. So that's what I would call profitable revenue. These will have about 100 age restricted units and about 125 that are allowed to have children. And I think the numbers the developer used, and I'm not sure these are going to be the right numbers, but they're like maybe 50 children, 50 to 100 children might be in these units here. And we think, and I'm not the ultimate authority here, but the town thinks that there is headroom in the school system for the children that would be in this development area. They will have playgrounds, and this one here is going to have a clubhouse, and it's going to be pretty good stuff. But I want to point out right now that all this is going to take a long time. I'd say 5 to 10 years before we really see it all this start to happen. We'll see it will start earlier, of course, but by the time we all get some decent revenue in, we got a long plan here. There's a long time to go. So we're not going to reap any big benefit here. But what I do right away, eventually we'll say between $6 and $10 million every year in tax money. And then there's the permit money, there's the hookup fees for the sewer and the water. There's all kinds of money involved in here, plus all the other work, salaries and paying all these workmen for 5 years and that kind of thing. So there's a lot going to happen there, and then when you start to add on, there'll be even more tax revenue. It'll be like almost like another little industrial park, or maybe even more than one industrial park when you add everything up here. So it's very important to our town, and it is moving along. And now I want to talk a bit about that. Now, if we had $500,000 from this kind of a setup, let's say we had the water and sewer in and we were just starting to work here and we have $500,000 coming in, it would have made a big difference in this year's budget, a big difference in our taxes, providing the spending was under control. I mean, you got to be very careful when you start bringing in a lot more revenue that your spending doesn't get out of control, and then it won't do you any good. If you want to read my green papers on this subject, they're still down in the town hall. Green papers, ask the town clerks, and they'll show you where they are, and you can make a copy if you want, or take them and read them and bring them back. A lot of people have been reading them. Every once in a while I put a new clean copy down there because people scribble on them and things like that. Now, the town's future. I'm going to go over a few points here. And I want to emphasize to you what's happening around town. This is more educational than anything else, and it's not meant to be everything. It's just to whet your appetite and to get you to know a little bit about this and perhaps want to learn more about it. So I'm going to talk about the future of the budget, what the selectmen are trying to do to increase the revenue, what the town manager is trying to do to increase the revenue, what the planning department's doing to try to increase the revenue and do it in what I would call a responsible manner, and what the Economic Development Commission is doing to try to help us increase the revenue and provide an environment to increase the revenue. And there's a lot of energy been pumped into that in the last 6 months. And there's also a redevelopment commission, which is trying to help us get signs up around town and do various things to the town downtown. And of course, there's the Friends of Main Street, which also have a similar charter, and they run events and activities, and they help try to get the facades cleaned up and things like that. So it's a whole infrastructure of commissions, committees, and agencies, and the town leaders here, all focusing, number one, on trying to make this an attractive place for people to come, for all different kinds of industry and businesses and the university students and all, to help increase the revenue in this town. Now, as far as the budget is concerned, the economy is in pretty bad shape, as you know, all over the world, and will be for some time to come. There's the possibility of a depression and certainly some form of a recession. The budget will continue to be average or less. I don't see any. You might get a year where we have to raise 8%, another year 1%, but I think on average it's going to be about 3.93% for another 10 years, or until we start to get some more revenue coming in or drastically cut our expenses. The additional revenue portion of the budget must be increased to help raise more tax dollars. Inflation is running high, up near 5% or so in the recent future, and retirement portfolios have been hit hard and will take time to recover. Consumer spending is slowing rapidly. You read that out everywhere you look now. That I just heard Mayor Bloomberg on the radio saying New York restaurants are a lot less populated than they were just a month or two ago. I know our own town, the restaurants will feel this before most other businesses will. There are some businesses that this might help. Instead of going to Torrington and spending money for gas and oil and things, they'll do it around here. So that might attract a few more retail places. So we could have some benefit from this, but overall it's going to be a heavy burden for a few years to come. Home prices are dropping as the rescue attempt proceeds in the state, in the town, and in the country, and in the world. So I can't say enough about this. You can read about it every day in the paper, turn on any television channel, and we're in for some rough times here. And that's going to affect our budget. Now, what are the selectmen doing to help us? As pointed out on this program all the time, the majority selectmen, the 5 majority selectmen, have promised to increase the speed of new revenue production. Even the minority members agree with increasing revenue. They don't always agree that the developments are best for the town. They would like to have more industry, more retail, and so all 7 of them would like to see us increase the revenue to help ourselves, but they want to see it done in different ways. So right now, the 5 majority selectmen are really interested and have been for 6 or 7 years in getting the developments in the town, and they're also interested in all the other aspects, getting more industry, getting more retail, growing the university, anything we can do, helping with the Wall of America, anything we can do to balance the town and get more revenue in. And you can see when I do my report cards here every quarter, the quarterly report, that these selectmen constantly vote for more revenue. They are trying to encourage the town boards, commissions, and agencies to provide a more business-friendly environment. When we had the summit meeting a few months back, the town business people were very, they really emphasize that we need to have a more business-friendly environment for our existing businesses, and to attract new businesses to town. The selectmen are trying to attract more businesses to town, industrial and retail, and right now a lot of the focus will be on the corridor because the industrial parks are full already, although some people are adding there, and every once in a while a building turns over to a new company or new business. They're trying to attract more businesses to town, industrial and retail, and more jobs. They would like to see people come here with factories and have jobs for our present population and our future population. They're trying to safely expedite the taxes from the major developments approaching our town. So they're constantly working with all the commissions, boards, and town agencies and town departments to try to make it easier for these people to come to town in a responsible manner, get decisions made, and help us by beginning to pay taxes. And again, profitable taxes. It's one thing to have people come that use a lot of town services, and it's another thing to have people come that don't use as many services as others would, and that's what I call more profitable tax money, when they use as few services as possible, like these age-restricted developments. The selectmen are trying to safely expedite the taxes from the major developments approaching our town, as I just said. They have resurrected the 1999 downtown plan and are encouraging its implementation. This was resurrected when Bruce Gresick was the acting town manager, and has since been picked up by our town manager, and he was working with everybody to try to get this downtown plan for the center of town circulated, updated if necessary, and off onto some sort of progress. And that includes all the buildings downtown that are old and that most people are concerned about. They have funded the POCD, Plan of Conservation and Development, for the Enterprise Corridor leg of the plan. And there is money in this budget, more money for that POCD if the budget gets approved. They've also just received, a few days ago, they got the check for $20,000 from the state to invest into this Plan of Conservation and Development updating exercise. This is important for our town, and once they're done with the Enterprise Corridor piece, and perhaps even a little in parallel with it, they'll be doing other parts of the town, and I'm sure the 99 downtown plan area will also be incorporated at a kind of a high priority, although I'm not totally aware of that right now. I did take 6 copies of minutes from the last 6 Economic Development Commission meetings, and I'm reading those now to get a better feel. And I'll have one program perhaps pretty soon on just what that commission is doing to help us get more, prepare for and help us get more revenue in town. The selectmen have been working with the Water and Sewer Commission to expedite the water and sewer permission to the major developments and down the Enterprise Corridor. That's moving along, and maybe by mid-year next year we might have those permits squared away, and then again we might not. But everybody's putting their shoulders to the wheel to try to get that stuff done. The selectmen have introduced the production of a medium to long-term plan to the town manager's goals. They did this unanimously. The goals and objectives, including capital, revenue, and town expenses. We are terribly hampered in this town, as I saw in the budget meetings in the last day or two, by the lack of at least a 2-year plan. So we can say, hey, let's cut something out this year that'll really help us next year, because next year's revenue is going to be low, and the expenses are going to be high, and we're going to need some help. But we don't look past 1 year right now, to be honest with you. On capital side, we look 5 years, but the plan's not very good, not up to date, and it doesn't hold water because it doesn't have any revenue against it. One of the charter revision questions, the fifth question, was to try to get the 5-year plan placed in the charter. That didn't happen. But the selectmen have placed it in the town manager's goals and objectives. Now, the town manager, what's he doing to help us get revenue in? The town manager was chosen unanimously by all 7 selectmen when they interviewed town managers. The town manager received a very good, excellent 6-month review recently, unanimously from all 7 selectmen. So I think we're on the right track for keeping a town manager here from term to term so that we can make progress. It's very difficult to come in, stay 2 years, get another town manager. I went through all this on previous programs, so I won't belabor it here. But we need to keep this town manager as long as we can under as many different regimes of selectmen in the future as we can, because that will really help us to stabilize our government and to get more revenue into this town to help with the tax situation and to help get the town fixed up too. The town manager and selectmen have agreed to a set of goals and objectives that include the production of a medium-term business plan that includes revenue, capital expenses, and town expenses. And that's a big step forward for our town. The town manager is interested himself as a town manager in cost projections for, say, 4 to 5 years, and this will, he eventually wants to sort of get a better glimpse out for 5 or 10 years, so that we'll have these plans. We recently got surprised this week that we owe $125,000 for some benefits to some of our employees that are either disabled or no longer with us, and the benefits go to their families. We're $125,000 in arrear. Guess what? It's got to come out of this year's budget. And that's because we don't have a plan from year to year, and we can't see the train coming down the tracks, and then it hits us before we know. Anything can pop up here when you're changing town managers every 2 years. To accomplish this, it is important that the town manager remains through the frequent changes in leadership that occur in Winsted every 2 years. The town manager should remain as long as he is performing satisfactorily. The town manager is responsible for managing the business day to day, month to month, and year to year. He is not responsible for policy. He's responsible for running the business, and there is a clause in the existing charter that says that he should not be micromanaged. I did see some letters to the editors in the papers that were anti-mayoral form, and that's quite all right. That's everybody's right. But in there I did see where one person said we should not micromanage the town manager. He should be given direction and then allowed to manage. And I was 100% in favor of that letter, that part of that letter. The Economic Development Commission. The Economic Development Commission I'm going to be talking a lot about in the future, and maybe have a guest or two on the program from there. They are responsible for retention of existing businesses in town. It's a commission of about 10 or 13 people. They are responsible for the retention of existing businesses. Their leader is appointed by the town manager. The commission members are appointed by the selectmen. They are responsible for the growth of existing businesses, and they are responsible for planning for and soliciting new businesses to town. They are also interested in job creation and business balance and town balance. They want to make sure that we have a balanced town, and they're working hard at that. You can get their minutes down at the Planning and Zoning Office in Town Hall. Kathy Venezia does a very good set of minutes, and you can read those probably the last 6 set. I wouldn't go before 6 because I think they've just become awake in the last 6 months or so. They got the whole town running interference for them. They got all the selectmen and the town manager helping to assist them. And in the past, economic development commissions did very well. The only problem was nobody ever implemented their plans. So this 1999 plan has been brought out of mothballs, and the director of the Economic Development Commission is pushing it forward and meeting with the town manager and whoever else he has to, all the business people in town, through this commission, and they're going to make good progress. The planning department, very important. The planning department reports to the town manager and works with the EDC, Economic Development Commission, and the Planning and Zoning Commission. And his job is to make sure the department is responsible for regulation review in a business-friendly manner. So he wants to make sure that any business coming to town can be done efficiently, and it can be done according to all regulations, state regulations, federal regulations, town regulations. There are plenty of them, and it takes a long time. And then next thing I want to point out is the land use boards. There are a lot of land use boards. I haven't named them all here. There's planning and zoning, there's inland wetlands, there's a zoning board of appeals. There's all kinds of land use boards. And the land use boards and commissions are responsible for ensuring that new development is responsible and follows the statutes of the state, the rules and procedures, and of course any federal things that are involved. So over the next few weeks and months, I'm going to be talking more about these commissions and about these committees and about these everybody in town that's trying to work together as a team. And the EDC, of course, is trying to pull them all together under the direction of the town manager to get everybody working harmoniously as an orchestra to help us get this town revitalized in a balanced manner as soon as practical, in a way that everybody will feel proud, and other businesses and other industries and other students will want to come to the town of Winsted. This will help us all. My view, that's the most important thing we need to do right now. And with that, I'll thank you very much. I think you're going to hear my song again here at the end of the program. If not, I'll see you next week.
Go tell the town folk, go tell the town folk, go tell the town folk, the fourth town budget's dead. The one we've been hoping, the one we've been hoping, the one we've been hoping would provide a comfy bed. The town manager's mourning, the town manager's mourning, the town manager's mourning, his fourth town budget's dead. The superintendents are weeping, the superintendents are weeping, the superintendents are weeping, their fourth town budget's dead. It died at referendum, it died at referendum, it died at referendum, it's what the voters said. Go tell the town folk, go tell the town folk, go tell the town folk, we're going to try again. We'll try for the fifth time, we'll try for the fifth time, we'll try for the fifth time, a budget's overdue. The year will be half over, the year will be half over, the year will be half over before a budget's passed. The town manager's hoping, the town manager's hoping, the town manager's hoping that the fifth proposal will pass. The superintendents are hoping, the superintendents are hoping, the superintendents are hoping that this town budget will pass. It will be a reduction, it will be a reduction, it will be a reduction, an attempt to the services. The voters want the services. The selectmen are perplexed. We'll have much less service. We'll have much less service. We'll have much less service if the fifth proposal is passed. The town manager's mourning. The town manager's mourning. The town manager's mourning. The town will have no comfy bed. The superintendents are weeping. The superintendents are weeping. The superintendents are weeping. The schools will have no comfy bed. The next year will be tougher. The next year will be tougher. Next year will be tougher. We need more revenue. Go tell the voters. Go tell the voters. Go tell the voters that we need more revenue. 5 selectmen have promised. 5 selectmen have promised. 5 selectmen have promised that the revenue is number one. It's a manager goal and objective. A manager goal and objective. It's a manager goal and objective to construct a revenue plan. The EDC is chartered. The EDC is chartered. The EDC is chartered for town development. The town planner is chartered. The town planner is chartered. The town planner is chartered to help achieve success. With an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, we'll have our comfy bed. With an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, we'll have our comfy bed. With an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, with an increase in revenue, we'll have our comfy